Hello all, and this is me Soundarya KS, and in this video I would be reading the second chapter from The Serpent's Revenge by Sudha Murthy, Unusual Tales from the Mahabharata. Chapter 2, The Ring of Memory. It's in page number 5. If you want, you have the book, you can just go through it. Once there lived a king named Vishwamitra who gave up everything to become a sage and went into meditation in a forest for several years. Lord Indra, the king of the gods, was afraid that the powerful sage Penance would be a threat to its throne. So he sent his most beautiful celestial dancer, Menaka, to distract Vishwamitra. Menaka came down from the heavens and tried to distract the sage. After a lot of effort on her part, Vishwamitra opened his eyes. The moment he laid eyes on Menaka, the sage forgot his meditation and fell in love with her. The couple lived happily for a while until they had a baby girl. Vishwamitra couldn't take his eyes off the cherubic baby, but she reminded him of his purpose, and he realized to his great dismay that he had completely forgotten about his penance. Instead, he had become the father of a child. Angry and upset, he said to Menaka, "I understand now what was happening here. You are the one who diverted my attention from my purpose. From this day on, it is your sole responsibility to look after this baby. Don't ever approach me again. If you do, I will curse you in such a manner that you will regret the day you came looking for me." Without another look at the newborn, Vishwamitra stomped out of their home, never to return. Menaka was distraught. "What am I to do?" she thought. "I can't take my baby back to Lord Indra's court in the heavens. Humans aren't allowed there." Weeping, she prayed fervently to the gods above and the creatures in the forest. Finally, she placed the baby on a plantain leaf under a shady tree and said to her, "My dear child, please forgive me. I am helpless. I was commanded to distract Vishwamitra, and now that he is no longer with me, I must go back. I will leave you here with a prayer, and I request these animals and birds to look after you. I promise you that whenever you are in trouble, I will come down from the heavens to help you." With tears and desperation in her eyes, Menaka went back to the Indra's court. For a few hours, the baby girl lay there with only some birds for company, who kept her entertained. The sound of her laughter reached the ears of the sage Kanva, who was on his way to a river nearby. He followed the sound to its source, a baby girl surrounded by birds who were making her laugh. Sage Kanva looked around for her parents, but there were absolutely no sign of human life. He finally sat down and meditated until he realized through his yogic powers that the baby had been abandoned. He picked up the baby in his arm. "Oh, my dear child," he said, "I am a hermit, but I'll bring you up like my very own. Since you were surrounded by these delightful Shakuntas who have kept you cheerful, I will call you Shakuntala." Shakuntala grew up to be a beautiful woman in Sage Kanva's ashram. She formed a very close friendship with two girls named Anushya and Priyamvada. Gautami, another hermit in the ashram, played a huge role in raising Shakuntala. Young Shakuntala was very fond of the animals and the birds and the trees in the ashram, and content her life there. One day, Sage Kanva had to go away from the ashram for a few months. Meanwhile, Shakuntala got busy tending to the garden and watering the trees and plants. After some time, she heard a voice saying, "I'm thirsty. Will you please give me some water?" She turned around to find herself face to face with a handsome young man who was none other than Dushyanta, a descendant of the Kuravas from the Luna dynasty and the king of Ashintapur. Dushyanta had heard that the forest near the ashram were full of wild animals that were constantly attacking his people, so he had taken it upon himself to hunt those creatures down. Dushyanta and Shakuntala were instantly drawn to each other. She shyly poured him some water while he stood staring at her face, struck by her beauty and grace. Taking advantage of Sage Kanva's absence, the king began visiting the ashram every day on the pretense of taking a break from a search for the wild animals. Weeks passed, and the couple finally got married in a simple ceremony without the consent of their families. Soon after the wedding, Dushyanta had to go back to the capital. Shakuntala was heartbroken. Dushyanta consoled her, saying, "Dear wife, take this ring as a reminder of my love. I promise to send word to your father as soon as I reach Hastinapur. I must ask for his permission before taking you back with me." Shakuntala calmed down a little and agreed. She wore a slightly loose ring on her finger and looked at her husband with trust and confidence. Dushyanta became busy with matters of the state as soon as he reached the capital. So he decided to put off the sending word to Shakuntala father until he had more time on his hands. Meanwhile, Shakuntala found that she was pregnant. When Sage Kanva came back to the ashram, he learnt of everything that had happened. "Though I have raised Shakuntala as my daughter, she has chosen to marry a king and not a sage. But I know that she will make an elegant queen," he thought. He said to his daughter, "Let's not wait to hear from Dushyanta. It's time for you to go to your husband's home." Though Shakuntala was delighted at the thought of the reuniting with her husband, she was also very nervous about the life ahead of her. "I have never gone out of the ashram or the forest. I have never even seen a city. I only know my dear foster father and my husband. I wonder if I can live or adjust to the life in the capital," she thought fretfully. When she was lost in her thoughts, Durvasa, a sage famous for short temper, entered the ashram to meet Sage Kanva. Shakuntala was so distracted by her worries and appearances that she forgot her duties as a host and didn't offer so much as a greeting to the sage. Durvasa was livid to his presumed blatant lack of respect. He poured a little water from his Kamadalu into his palm and sprinkled it on the young woman and said, "Oh, Shakuntala, you forgot your responsibility as a host because you were clearly thinking of something else. The person in your thought will have no recollection of you from this moment on." Poor Shakuntala barely registered his words. Her friends, who had just entered the room, heard the terrible curse and immediately fell at Durvasa's feet. "Oh, revered sage, we urge you to take back your curse," they pleaded. "Shakuntala is a knave as a newborn. She is going through a difficult time, so she is consumed by her worries. We have never known her to hurt people even unintentionally. Please hear, please hear us. We ask for forgiveness on our behalf. Durvasa calmed down. I can't undo the curse, he said. However, I can give you a remedy. If Shakuntala possesses a material item of the person she was thinking about, then that person will remember her as soon as he or she sees the item. Shakuntala was still in daze and remained unaware of the curse and the gravity of the situation. Soon it was time for Shakuntala to depart. Her friends warned her, "Don't forget to carry the king. Be careful, Shakuntala. Don't lose it, no matter what happens." Shakuntala nodded distractedly and, along with Gautami and a few sages, left the ashram. She looked back at her home with a heavy heart. The troop left the forest and took a boat across the river Ganga to reach Hastinapur. As usual, Shakuntala started thinking of Dushyana while absent-mindedly dipping her hand in water. As the ring was slightly loose, it slipped from her finger and fell into the river and was swallowed by a fish. Shakuntala, however, didn't even realize that she had lost the ring. After a long journey, the troop finally reached the royal court, where Dushyanta was busy with matters of the court. When she finally got a chance, Gautami addressed him. "O king, I present to this beautiful maiden, the daughter of Sheikh Khanwa. You met her in his ashram and married her. She is now with child, and it was our duty to bring her to marital home. Our Guru sends his regards and requests you to look after his daughter like a delicate flower. Since our work is now complete, we would like to take your leave and return to the ashram." Of course, because of the Durvasa's curse, King Dushyanta could not recollect Shakuntala. He, he, he instinctively felt that he had not seen her somewhere and knew her somehow. But he wasn't ready to accept her as his wife. "We wait once," he said gently. I respect your Guru's sentiments. However, I don't recall meeting this maiden before. So how could I marry her? She may have mistaken me for someone who looks like me. I am a king after all, and my wedding must take place in front of witnesses. Believe me, I don't know this the young women." Shakuntala was shocked by the king's response. In tears, she said, "O king, it was you who married me. I know that I don't come from royalty, but I am not a liar. I am a daughter of sage, and money doesn't have any meaning for me. Values and virtues are the only wealth I possess. I married you because I loved you and not because I wanted to become a queen. Oh, oh, king, hear me out. Listen to the memories of our time together. I'm sure that you will be able to remember it all." Shakuntala went on to share a few incidents, trying best to remind her husband of their past, but alas, it was of no use. Finally, the king said, "Look, do you have any kind of actual proofs? I am unable to recollect anything from your stories." Suddenly, Shakuntala remembered the ring that he had given to her. "Of course," she carried on, "I can show you one thing." She stretched out a hand in front of the king and said, "You gave me this king." But when she looked, she realized to her horror that the ring was lost. "Oh my God, it is gone." The king waited. Shakuntala searched desperately for the ring but couldn't find it anywhere in her belongings. Gautama asked worried, "Where did you leave it, Shakuntala?" "I had it when we were in the boat, but I don't remember anything clearly now." Shakuntala replied with sadness in voice and tears in her eyes. The people in the court began snickering and laughing at her. Helpless Shakuntala left the court in silence. Dushyanta, though convinced that he hadn't met Shakuntala before, was still left with terrible sense of despondency. Gautami and other sages decided to return to the ashram, but Shakuntala insisted on staying back in the city. When she was finally alone, Shakuntala remembered her mother who had abandoned her in the forest. She cried out, "Oh, mother, look what fate has done to me. My parents left me when I was born, and now my husband refuses to recognize me so soon after our marriage. I am pregnant, and I don't want to go back to my father's home in disgrace. You are the only one who can help me." True to her promise, Menaka came down from the heavens and took Shakuntala to stage Marchi's arm, where Shakuntala gave birth to a healthy baby boy and named him Bharata. A few days later, a soldier came to Dushyanta and said, "Sir, the local market is in chaos after we arrested a fisherman." "Why? What did he do?" asked Dushyanta. "He was trying to sell a royal king in the local market. We identified it as yours and arrested him." "Bring the fisherman to me," the king ordered. When the fisherman was brought to the king, it was evident that he was scared out of his wits. In a shaky voice, the man said, "Sir, I'm just a poor fisherman. When I put the net out today, I got a big fish. Pleased with my find, I asked my wife to cook the fish and make us something special. But when she cut it, she found a huge ring inside the stomach. I thought that the quickest way for me to make some money would be to sell it in the market. While I was at the shop, a few of your soldiers arrested me. I don't know anything about this ring other than where I got it from. I had no idea that a simple fish could bring so much trouble. Please let me go, sir. I'm telling you the truth." The ring was handed over to the king. The moment he saw it, he remembered everything about Shakuntala. It was the ring that he had given to his wife. He recalled her tear-streaked face and how he had mischievously sent her away. She was pregnant with his child, but he hadn't cared a bit. Instead, he had allowed the people in his court to humiliate her. Overcome with remorse, Dushyanta rewarded the fisherman and instructed his soldiers to find Shakuntala. They searched every nook and corner of the kingdom but couldn't locate her. Meanwhile, Bharata was growing up quickly under Shakuntala's care. He was a plucky young boy whose playmates were wild animals. Years rolled by. One day Indra requested Dushyanta to help him in a war against the Asuras. Dushyanta agreed and managed to defeat the Asuras. On his way back from the Indra's abode, he stopped to take rest at sage Marchi's ashram. There he saw a wonderful sight. A young boy was fearlessly playing with a lion cub and forcing its mouth open so he could count his teeth. I'll just go to the next thing. Such a brave child. His parents are fortunate to have him as their son, thought King Dushyanta. It would be wonderful to have and hear like him to take my dynasty forward. The king looked around and noticed a strange armlet on the ground. He picked it up and asked the boy, "Is this yours?" "Yes, it must have fallen down." Suddenly, a maid came running to Dushyanta, saying, "Please don't touch it, sir. It is dangerous." "Why? What is so dangerous about this black thread?" "Our Guru Marchi has powered the armlet with a special mantra to protect this boy Bharata. If anyone other than his parents or Guru touch the armlet, it will turn into a snake and bite the person holding it. Please drop it immediately," she said, pain stricken. King Dushyanta only smiled and held on an armlet. Hearing the loud voices, Shakuntala came out of the ashram to see what was going on. When she saw Dushyanta, she stopped in her tracks and stared at him in disbelief. Dushyanta looked back at her, overpowered by guilt. Shakuntala had been kind and loving to him, and he had been nothing but cruel to her. The young maiden he had fallen in love with had turned into a mature single mother now. Her once innocent eyes now shone with wisdom and intelligence. He begged Shakuntala for forgiveness. But by now Shakuntala had understood the reason for the turn of events. It wasn't Dushyanta's fault that he hadn't recognized her, so she was consoled her husband, saying, "There's nothing to forgive. Life's journey is filled with both good and bad. Some things are beyond our control. It was our destiny that we had to live this way." King Dushyanta went straight to sage Marshi, sought permission to take his family home, and finally brought Shakuntala and Bharata back to Hastinapur. Bharata grew up to be a great ruler and conquered land all over India. In time, he came to be known as Bharata Chakravarti or Bharata Sarvabhauma. He performed many yagnas such as Ashwamedha Yagna, Rajasuya Yagna, Vijayapaya Yagna, Vishwanasya Yagna, among others. Usually, a successful king performed only one of the yagna, but the warrior king Bharata surpassed everyone. He performed hundreds of Ashwamedha yagnas, 100 on the bank of river Yamuna, 300 on the bank of river Saraswati, and 400 on the bank of river Ganga. It is this Bharata, an ancestor of the Pandavas and Kuruvas, after whom our country is named Bharat. Our land is also known as Bharatvarsha or the Kingdom of Bharata. Bharata has many children. As he aged, he recognized that none of his children was capable of handling his vast kingdom. After long discussion with his ministers, children, and subjects, he understood that a good successor has to be strong, intelligent, and compassionate. Even it meant that none of his children or relatives could ascend his throne. The blood running through one's veins must not entitle an unworthy successor to a position he was unfit for. Bharata then found a young boy named Bhumanyu, who wasn't from a royal family. When the time was right, he called for a meeting at court. He gazed at his children and knew that he was taking the right decision. With confidence, he announced, "I have given a lot of thought to the matter of my successor and have decided that Bhumayu will ascend the throne after I step down." He looked at Bhumayu and said, "Come here, son. I find you worthy of this throne. It is your duty to look after this kingdom now." Thus Bhumayu succeeded Bharata and ruled just as fairly as his predecessors. This paved the way for merit as the basis of Bharata's dynasty until the day the blind king Dhritarashtra turned it all around by caring more for his offspring than for providing the kingdom with a worthy ruler. This, in time, became the cause of the great war of the Mahabharata, bringing Bharata's forward vision to an end. In the Hindu tradition, there are about 8 types of marriages. Shakuntala and Dushyanta had a Gandhava Viva, or a love marriage without any ritual. A Samyavara marriage, a, a Swayamvara is a ceremony in which the girl chooses her groom from a group of suitors. Sometimes the girl's father arranges for a test and promises to wed her to the winner. Arjuna, the Pandavas won Draupadi's hand in marriage in such a contest of skill. Then there is Vaidik Viva, where the bride, the groom, and their respective parents agree to bond in marriage, and the ceremony takes place in front of their families and friends with a loud chanting of Vedic mantras. There is also Rakshasa Viva, where a girl is abducted and married to someone against her will. So that's the end of the story, and thank you for watching, and please subscribe, and please click the bell button. I'm going to take a break right now, so thank you. Please support, because it means a lot to me. Thank you. Bye.